I was running out of furlough money, so I spent the last of my bank account setting up a booth and getting a decent microphone. I built the booth myself out of plastic poles and soundproofing blankets and the whole hullabaloo. It's all hung up using shower curtains. And that was it, really. Because as an actor, you kind of instinctively know how to approach voiceover, though coaching is so important within the genre, because it's really like going from stage to film. It is a different craft, but if you have the instinct and the training, you've got a good start.
Hello, welcome to Film Forums. My name is Millie Hayward and I am a recent screenwriting graduate, and today I have a very special guest with me. He's not only a fantastic voiceover artist, but he's actually a really great friend of mine. It's Nathan Chatelier. How are you doing, Nathan? Are you all right?
I am very good, thank you. How are you doing, Millie?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm excited to get stuck in, actually. I've been wanting to pick your brains for ages about voiceovers and doing voiceover work, so I'm desperate to learn the tricks of the trade. I was going to say, so can you tell us a bit about your background? Did you go to acting school? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I picked up acting in uni as more of a side hobby. And then after that, I followed it more professionally. And I started off training at Identity School of Acting, which is where I met your lovely self.
You did?
Yeah. And then after a couple of terms there, I've just mostly been doing classes here and there, and then just picking up work where I can. So a mixture of stage, screen, and since the pandemic, voiceover. So yeah, a bit of everything really, which is great, especially in these times when you're trying to literally have a house over your head. Diversifying definitely helps keep me fed and alive.
Tell me about it. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I was going to say, so not only you do voiceovers, it's also acting you do on the side, so screen acting and things. So how's that going for you recently? Have you been in anything? Are you allowed to say if you've been in anything recently, or?
I am. I was in a wonderful play back in September with the fantastic company Gutter Street, who are all dear friends of mine, and they put on amazing work. And I was in November filming for a day in Liverpool for Gemma Arterton's new Sky comedy Funny Girl, which was a really good time. Got a free bacon bap, which was top game. Got to see some absolute top of their game professionals working, and got some actual spoken role words on TV. So, it was a lovely end to 2021 after what was a pretty universally grim year.
So voiceover work, how did you get into doing specifically voiceover work? And what I wanted to know as well with voiceovers, is it something where you need an agent, or is this something that you can just sort of apply for on the internet and find opportunities there? How does it work?
So first of all, you absolutely don't need an agent. Agents have access to a whole plethora of opportunities that I wouldn't, but you don't need an agent to be in the business. And I'm a member of a lot of forums and groups, and a huge amount of them who are very successful don't have agency representation. There's a lot of websites. Upwork is an example. Fiverr is another. There's arguments and dilemmas within the industry as to how well they support the industry and to what extent they benefit freelancers in general. But they can be great places to find work. I could name others, like Studio Bunny, for example, is another good one. But no, you don't need an agent. My one does do voiceovers, thankfully. So I've had a couple of those auditions come through. But yeah, it's not a prerequisite, and you can very much get started on your own. But it is a lot of work. I got into it about a couple of months into the first lockdown. I was running out of furlough money, so I spent the last of my bank account setting up a booth and getting a decent microphone. I built the booth myself out of plastic poles and soundproofing blankets and the whole hullabaloo. It's all hung up using shower curtains. And that was it, really. Because as an actor, you kind of instinctively know how to approach voiceover, though coaching is so important within the genre, because it's really like going from stage to film. It is a different craft, but if you have the instinct and the training, you've got a good start. But really, the biggest journey for me was learning the technicals of it, because I'm not super tech savvy. And you think I put up a microphone, I speak into it, I send it, I get paid. But there's a huge amount of editing, mastering, mixing that goes into it, which is really where kind of a lot of the learning curve initially comes from. And it can be very, very daunting. But we've talked through it. We've talked through, getting started. And there are so many resources, and it's a really lovely community that will so happily get you on its feet. If you go on Facebook and look for voiceover groups, there's so many, and they're a really lovely bunch of people that help me sort out a lot of the initial stepping stones to being able to be confident in my skills technically and acting wise.
That's fantastic. I was going to say, literally, I feel like we're grabbing a freebie here, because the amount of hard work that you've put into learning about how to do voiceovers, and even when you've sort of tried to teach me a few things in the past, it's the sort of everything that you've learned. It must have taken you absolutely ages and so much research. So yeah, literally, and even making your own voiceover booth as well. I think that's fantastic. And my next question was actually going to be, how did you make your voiceover booth? So literally, so you had a shower curtain, quite sort of basic setup.
So it's there's a few great resources. If you want just sort of a basic PVC booth, you can find, I think if you type in on Google vocal booth blueprints, then one of the top links should have an email sign-up link, which will send you guidelines on the exact dimensions you need. So then all you have to do is download it, open the Excel spreadsheet, type in how big you want it, how wide, how tall, all that. And then it'll tell you the exact length of pole that you need. So then you find somewhere that sells PVC pipes. When I ordered them, they did come in 5-meter lengths. So it was quite a task getting them up the flat I lived in at the time. It was a bit of snakes and ladders. But yeah, all you need is the pipes, the corners, the connecting bits. And then if you type in, I believe it's vocal booth blankets, then there's a company that sells specifically. So they're not vocal silencing. So their aim isn't to eliminate sound, but their aim is to dampen sound from the exterior, just so you've got a little bit of a better recording environment. And they also help to eliminate things like reverb, which makes your voices sound less professional. But really, it's just a matter of getting a hacksaw and going at it for a few hours. And as someone who could not make a square box in DT when I was 8 years old, even I could do it with some difficulty. So it's very, very, very possible to do.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So when it comes to voiceovers, what's the average day like for you? Because I know you do the acting as well, and voiceovers. So what's the average day like for you? What does that entail?
So vocal warm-ups is a great way to start the day, and lots of chamomile tea for me. Coffee. Yeah, dude. Twinings. I don't know if I'm allowed to endorse things on here, but Twinings, chamomile, delicious. But yeah, vocal warm-ups, open up the inbox, and it's taken me so I've been going about 2 years, and over that time I've built up quite a lot of recurring clients. So I'd say at this point in time, about 80% of my work comes from recurring clients. So it's always a bit of a surprise as to whether or not I'm going to have a whole day of work, an hour of work, no work. It just goes like that. So today, for example, I have done an audition for learning English as a second language, as sort of kind of a MC host. I've done a tutorial on car maintenance and repair for a German auto manufacturer. And I think after this, I'll be doing a narration on the new Tesla engine
Wow.
for a YouTube channel. So it's really a big variety. I was saying just before we started recording, one of my recent jobs was working with a sexual health clinic, and you can be going from this really sort of quite intimate, heavy stuff to really over energize, in your face, keep your attention kind of energy. So it's invaluable as a stage and screen actor, this craft of voiceover. It's something I've only really appreciated since the pandemic started winding down and I've been able to get back on stage, get in front of the camera. Because a lot of, in my range of where I currently am in my career, the vast majority of clients you work with don't have any acting experience, and they don't have any direction experience either necessarily. So pretty much all of the direction of the script, the analysis of the script, the delivery of the script falls down to you as the performer. So I've actually found that my stage and screen work has actually significantly improved since I've had this space and time to really just direct myself, you know. It's a wonderful way towards becoming a more confident performer in all of the craft genres.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I was going to say, sort of one of the reasons I think I want to get into voice acting is just the confidence, and I feel like they'll balance one another, and especially because I love acting as well as screen acting, so I feel that they'll really complement one another. So yeah, like you were saying, when it comes to breaking down a voiceover script, that's quite an important factor, and that's probably something, once you've got your sort of, you set yourself up a profile, you're going to be a voiceover artist, going to find work. When it actually comes to getting work, it's sort of, how do I approach this script? So what are your sort of tips and advice, and can you give us an insight into how you would approach a voiceover script for like a commercial or an audiobook?
So I'd say across any of them, it's the same as being on the stage. I'd say it's most close to being on the stage in that there's an audience that you're speaking to, whatever it is, whether you're selling them car repairs or whether you're reading them an audiobook, there's always an audience. I was recording some demos for a friend a couple of days ago, and we were recording Happiness by Darren Brown, just a little extract from that for his profile. And the advice I gave to him was to just imagine that you're sitting by a fire with your kid, imparting your wisdom that you learn across the years to them, because that's the tone of the book. If you've read it, it's all about sort of stoicism and finding your way to happiness gently. And it's just knowing what is the message that's being imparted, because even if it isn't a commercial, you're still being sold something, if that makes sense. You're being sold like a theory on life, or you're being sold a world of fantasy, you know. So you've just got to know, what is the story I'm selling? And that could very well be whiskey, for example. Or if you take like, say you've got like a famous car brand, like Tesla. I know Tesla don't do adverts, but if you were to do a Tesla advert, you're not going to be like, you know, Tesla, buy one now, because you don't need to, because you're Tesla. All you've got to do is just remind them that you're there. You know, you don't mind if they buy it or not. You're Tesla, you know? Whereas if you were selling something much punchier, you've got to know, like, you need to buy this, like a video game or a wrestling match. So it's just sitting back and going, what's the brand? What's the story? Who's the audience? It's just acting. You've just got to take a more salesman mind to it.
That's brilliant. No, that's fantastic advice. I wish I've got my notebook right now. I'll be making notes. Literally.
It's all being recorded.
Yeah, thank you. No, I know it's all about sort of the main thing is about the voice and the tone and how you're going to sort of approach it. So no, thank you so much. Another question I've got is, so I know you've done a range of stuff. You've done animation, video games, Audible. My first question is, what's your favorite? And the second one is, when it comes to specifically sort of audiobooks, Amazon Audio, because I know you've done some work for them, how, I know that you have to meet certain guidelines, how would you go about getting work for them specifically as well?
Sure. So my favorite to work with is definitely fantasy audiobooks. I'm a Dungeons and Dragons player. I love Lord of the Rings. I love losing myself in sci-fi. It's such a joy, because a lot of fantasy is told from either like a first-person perspective or an engaged narrator's perspective. And all you're doing really as an audiobook narrator is reading the words that the writer has put on the page. You know, if the writing is good, you don't really need to add much. So it's just a pleasure to be able to explore these worlds and really get paid for it. Though I will say, audiobook is a very, very long editing task. You can outsource it, but for me personally, for about every finished hour of audiobook audio, that's about maybe 2 hours of recording and maybe 3 or 4 hours of editing. So they are the marathon of the voiceover world, but I take great pleasure in them. And your second question on the specs. So it varies from site to site, but Audible specifically has specifications, because they do certain things to the audio when you submit it so that it's easy for all devices to stream. So that's essentially, you've got to have the volume averaging out at a certain range, and it also can't go above a certain level. And then one of the most important ones is the noise floor. So the noise floor is sort of just the ambient noise. So if I stop speaking, that's the noise floor, you know? And there's tools on all devices. Like I use Audacity to edit my audio, and Audacity has plugins that you can install which can measure your room tone. So it's really just sort of those three things and just tinkering with your space to get it within the specifications. But in terms of working for Amazon specifically, I don't work for Amazon, and I haven't worked for Audible. You work for the individual authors through a site called ACX. You go into ACX, you pop a few samples on, and then you sort of narrow down to your demographic. So mine, I think, is young, adult, British, probably posh is also one of the things. And then you just normally pop over an audition of a page or so. And yeah, if they like it, they choose you. You can do royalty shares, payment by finished hour. So it's a very, very big market, but it is the sloggiest. I started with audiobooks. That was the first thing I did when I came into the voiceover world. And I would, if I was going back and offering myself advice now, I wouldn't recommend it as the first place to start. You will learn a tremendous amount about editing and your own voice, but boy, is it a slog. I would definitely start with shorter form stuff first.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was going to say, it's sort of, where do you start? And even with editing, it is quite a long challenge, isn't it? I know you said you use Audacity. That's free, isn't it? It's just software that you can just easily download online and sort of plug in and use, isn't it?
Yeah, Audacity is completely free, which is a great thing about it. It's a really great piece of software. There are better is not the right word, but there are maybe more flexible audio softwares out there. But for me anyway, it was where I started, and it's currently the most comfortable for me. But I know people use things like Audition, Reaper, Studio One. There's lots of options out there. But I think Audacity has a lot of great tutorials on YouTube just to get you started. And I certainly found it quite intuitive. I mean, really, it's just that first starting hurdle. We were saying this before, it's sitting down and going, right, I have to learn an entire piece of software now, or right, I have to learn how to market myself now. But that's sort of a lesson that I've picked up that's also, again, kind of transferred to acting. So much of voiceover can be put down to these tiny little things you do, is the mic here or here? Am I speaking from this far away or this far away? You really can just do these little fine tweakings once you're comfortable with the basics. And it's, for me anyway, a really joyful process to just be able to go, aha, made those little improvements.
That's brilliant. I guess, yeah, like you said, it is a learning curve. It's about making mistakes as you go along. That's all fine. But it's all a big learning process. My final question is, if you had to choose sort of a top piece of advice for people looking to get voiceover work in the industry or trying to get their foot in the door, what's your sort of top piece of advice you would give to people?
Ooh, that's hard. Not because there's not a piece of advice. There's so many pieces of advice. But, a top piece. Should
I give you a top three?
Yeah. I could, maybe a top three. Maybe I'll stumble upon the perfect one. I'd say the first one is get coaching. Definitely get coaching, because it's, again, I said it was similar to stage, it's similar to screen, but by Lord, are there nuances that you will either pick up on through trial and failure, or trial and success, or a coach will just say, don't do that, or do that. Get coaching. I've coached with the wonderful Abby Andrews of Voiceover Gym, and also Freddie Hogan of Fred Hog Voices, and they've both helped me an absolutely tremendous amount over the last 2 years. So definitely get coaching. And second, this is just more universal, I think, is be gentle with yourself, because it's quite, compared to acting in other forms, it's quite an isolated art craft, and it is a real slog starting up, and you will learn so much. Every time you finish a project, you'll look back and go, wow, I wish I'd done that differently. And then you won't do it again next time. Like, it's a really incremental process, but it's very rewarding when you can look back and see how far you've come. And third, ask for help. Just ask for help. There's so many communities out there who are so happy to see people giving it an honest, hard go. There are people that can do it as a hobby, but like, it's a profession. You got to put in the grind, and people will help you do that. I will help you do that. Other people will help you do that.
Oh, thank you so much, Nathan. You've given so many sort of golden nuggets of advice tonight, and really, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much, Millie.
Thank you.